Good afternoon and welcome to the third episode. God, we've made it to 3 episodes already of Living Literature. And this week, I didn't do a promo video because this book needs no promo. Oh my God. It's been an amazing week of amazing reading about things that, as a married woman, I really don't think about, but if I was a single lady, and even still I learned some things from it, I would take this book, Mr. Donald Thomas Jr.'s What the Average Guy is Thinking. Guys, when I tell you I have to keep this book in my hand, because if I was to do a review just from my memory, I would be so overclouded. Seriously, it would be crazy. So what I'm going to do is do it a little bit differently and read different pieces of it to you and give you my insight. I'm sorry, guys. It's so important that we don't just take our mind and try to remember things, but that we take it verbatim sometimes. Because the information is so important that you really have to make sure that you're doing it justice. So I wanted to do this a different way in a different part of the house with a different piece of artwork because I'm an art fiend. So anywho, let's just jump into it. As always, when I'm looking at a book, the first thing I see is the acknowledgments. And in this, Mr. Donald, he acknowledged his father for showing him how to be a man, his mother for assisting him in being that man, and any woman that's had anything to do with his journey in relationships. Guys, that is so huge because he's saying, you know what, no matter if it was a good situation, a bad situation, perfect or indifferent, we've had that and you've assisted me in growing my story to be the man that I am to make this phenomenal book. So, okay, let's get to it. The first thing that I thought was really, really cool was he talked about the John Doe theory. And if you think about somebody that's a John Doe in a criminal sense, it's someone that doesn't have an identity. So he kind of does a compare and contrast and where he brings it and correlates it in with that such topic of it being like a crime. You don't know that person, and once that person is found, you have to do an investigation. And how true is that of our everyday lives and in relationships? Even if you've known a person for a long, long time, things change when you actually decide to be in a relationship with them. So this whole John Doe theory is amazing because he's breaking it down simplistically and saying, look, you have to investigate that person. You have to learn that person. And then once you learn that person, you truly get to see the aspects of them that make it to where either you sink or swim in relationships, basically, guys. And for me, I had a quick relationship. My husband and I met, and 5 months later, we got married. So it was all in the same time to where he went from John Doe to husband. And we're still learning 6 years later. So that was something that I hope that when you guys pick up this lovely, lovely book, that you will see that it relates. Simplistically, it relates because you have to know that person in order to figure out if it's something that's going to be worth your time or not. Simply put. So let's move a little bit forward because I put so many different pieces on it, and it's so important that we get to all of them, guys. He goes on to talk about how men view us. And I think it's important that we kind of scale back a little bit and talk about the fact that this is not the first relationship book by a man. But the ones that I know of that are really, really popular are by people that are in the entertainment business that, are on a different level. They have TV shows, they have radio shows, they have different shows that they can put out this information, and they've seen things on a different level. But Mr. Donald's giving it to us from the guy that we see at Rouse's. He's giving it to us from the guy that we see at Walmart. He's giving it to us as a guy that we would see on an everyday basis. So for me, it's a little bit more important to hear from someone that I could actually touch. Someone that's accessible and someone that I can actually have this conversation with, not only calling in, but I can just see him and converse with him about it. So again, getting back to it, because it's so important that we talk about these things. He wants to talk about how men see us, the housewife and the trophy wife and the homegirl, because whether you know it or not, those 3 people, just in those 3 topics, are different people that in a man's life plays a role. Now, what that role is, I'm going to let you guys take the time to actually read and get to see what that role is, because there's other things to talk about and so much within this book that I want to kind of dissect. So, moving forward, guys, when I was reading, I would take some time at work and actually use a bit of my lunch break to read the book. And one of the things that stopped me, again, as a married woman, and I don't have this issue, was the two components of baby mama drama and baby daddy drama. Because, see, to Donald, they were different. And of course they will be, because he's a man. But the willingness of him to share his own transparency in it was really, really important, guys. Because he talks about the fact that he's pretty much a single father. And any woman that gets in his kid's life, if they embrace his kids and fulfill that role of what they don't have, in the mother aspect, then he'll make sure that they're respected. Which is a big deal. But guys, he goes on to talk about the baby daddy drama. And the fact that he doesn't see it as an equal thing. And I don't know, me being a woman, if I can be biased on that or not. See, guys, in his life, he correlates it to his everyday situations of, if a woman comes in, I'm going to take care of you, as a man does. But his thought and what I got from this portion is, not all the time do women in that same situation with having a baby daddy do the same. And coming from a man and him being so open about how he feels, that's huge, guys. Because if a man is working so hard in his life to protect you, and he doesn't feel like he's protected, what's the sense of there even being a relationship? So as a woman, I can only sincerely pray that moving forward, that he and any other gentleman that picks up this book, what an average guy is thinking, I hope that they can finally see the growth in us as a gender to protect them as well. One thing he says on the baby daddy portion is not only about the baby mama, baby daddy, but it says relationships today have changed. As a society, when we meet a person of interest, our initial conversations have evolved into something very unique. Way back in the day, they had different ways of doing it, and he talks about that. He was saying, like in the 80s, we had phone numbers and beeper numbers, which became what's now cell phones. And the evolution of technology has helped in the evolution of actually the dating sense. Guys, it's even a component that they have on when I'm doing insurance. There's a part on there that talks about the relationship. And there's something in this book that caught me, and it has single with kids. Guys, I don't know how important you guys know that this is, but when I'm doing an insurance application, when I'm doing a mere quote, single with kids is a status on there. And you actually get a discount for that. So, guys, if you didn't know that, you know that now. But it's something that Mr. Donald was talking about because, it's okay now to have a baby daddy. It's okay to have a situation where you've been with someone and now it's been segregated. It's been separated. Most kids are coming from homes that don't have both parents. They just don't. So a book like this, talking about what the next guy is thinking, what your husband is thinking, what your baby father is thinking, like what these people in the male gender are thinking about what's going on, who we are, where we are, and how we play our role. It's very, very important to them. And though they may not show it because they're not as emotional as we are, and that's not only been said, but it's also within the book, like he talks about the emotions. And where men actually put their emotions, like in the finance and being the breadwinner and being that protector, that's important, And a lot of women like myself have had to deal with that. I come from being very, very independent, and, the book talks about the man's role as well as ours. And it's not just being sexist. I had to look beyond that in the book because he's actually giving us a point of view that we need in order to have a successful relationship. So, guys, Let me just keep moving. Oh my God, it's so much. Uh, okay, another thing that he did in the compare and contrast is talking about like homegirls in the beginning portion of the book, and then he goes on to talk about the homeboy, the male bestie. Oh God, I don't have one of those, but I have it in the past, and it was very tumultuous for my relationships because, as a friend, he says that he's not necessarily thinking about, who his friends date, and even if they're just someone that he's dating, he's not thinking about that, but if it's on the other side and it's a woman, guys, I know for sure that if you have a woman bestie, I'm thinking about it. It's something that's important to me. When I think about this, and as I was reading it, I thought about LaToya Luckett's Back to Life video. Don't know if you guys have seen it, but in that video, she's in a great relationship. And he has a homegirl that he's known his entire life. They even share the same birthday, and it ended up being more. Because as women, we want more. We really do. And the minute that we start being honest with ourselves is when we can actually start growing and having better relationships. So I'm really, really happy that he discussed this because it's very important. Look, guys, Mr. Donald Thomas's book, again, What the Average Guy is Thinking. It talks about commitment. It talks about communication. It talks about how men actually go through breakups. And I could give it to you. But I think that when you're reviewing a book, you're actually talking about the key components that relate to you. And as a wife, as a mother, as a woman in general, guys, I found myself jumping into different portions because it touched me. But I know that there are so many different aspects in here that can touch you. Because again, he's giving it to us from, I don't want to say Joe Blow, but he's giving it to us from the average person that's out here, that's just trying to make it better, that wants to give you insight, that wants to give you a sense of direction in what you're doing and how you're doing it. As a woman and as a man, there's a certain part in here where he's like, it's time for us to wake up, guys. It's time for us to do what we need to do on our part as well. And, at the end of the day, there's a question that he asked. And I think that no matter if you're a man or a woman and you pick up this phenomenal book, you want to get an answer for it. And it's the question of, whether if you're a man or if you're a man, if you go on a business trip and Halle Berry's there, or somebody that's just banging is there. Women, do you think your man would cheat? And men, would you? It goes beyond just the relationship aspect. It goes to who are you? What are your morals? How's everything set up with what you have going on? I think that that's an important question. And to answer it, no, I don't think my husband would cheat. I just don't, because I believe that the relationship that we have and the honesty that we have would withstand it, And I think that if he did, he would tell me. But it's nothing that I'm concerned with on a daily basis because I'm structured in myself. So I'm structured in my marriage. So, guys, this is again a book full of information. I could go on and on and on about it, and I could take it to chapter 9, which is talking about sex. But then you wouldn't get the insight on what it truly means to you, because for me, it's important, and the book stresses the importance of it. But it also says that men will not stay for sex, but they'll leave without it. I was like, okay, this is so simplistic, but at the same time, like, what do you do as a woman? It gives you insight as to what's really important, guys. And though sex is important, even if you're doing your best, it can't keep a man. So there needs to be more than that. There has to be more than just a physical. And that's kind of where he ends the book. He ends the book talking about the relationship that we must have beyond this world. And guys, it's so important. It's so, so, so important that we don't just look for what a man can give us or what a woman can give us. It's important that we take the time to scale back, to unmask it all, to be naked in our hearts, and to figure out what's most important for us, and to know that everything that comes, whether hard work or given softly, it comes from God. And that's the most important relationship, because once you found Him, once you know Him, once you have a solid foundation in the relationship that you have with Him, every other relationship that you have will be because of Him. And whether good or bad, when you have that trust in Him, you no longer question anything else that occurs. If you want to get in touch with Mr. Donald Thomas Jr., you can find him on Facebook, Donald Thomas. It's not hard to find. And he's going to be doing some seminars coming up in the Lafayette and Lake Charles region. So add him on here. Look for the book, What the Average Guy is Thinking. And make sure that you support. Not only support this phenomenal author, but support yourself. Because once we know better, we do better. And I think it's a few things that already in this I've taken and I've embodied and I've started to work on. Because whether we want to admit it or not, relationships are important. And no, I don't need a man, but I always want to have one. It's good to come home to a pillow that's not cold. So, as always, guys, I appreciate you, and tune in next week. We'll be talking about Miss Judith Dow's book, Be Done with Broken Relationships and a Broken Life. Guys, don't know if that matters to you, to not have relationships that are not in a good place, on a good path, and how it affects your life. But it kind of piggybacks off Mr. Donald Thomas's book, because if your relationship's not right, certain aspects of your life won't be. And that's beyond our control. So thank you guys again for tuning in. There are definite sponsorship opportunities. Again, I don't drink tea every day, but artwork is my life. So if you guys want to get in touch with me, Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, and pretty much Instagram, everything's the same name, Whitney T. Living. I appreciate you. I love you. And as always, guys, life's listening.